The punishment is not disproportionate. It reflects the current national consensus. This court has been criticized recently for not standing up for the little guy. Well, I'm standing here today asking you to stick up for an 8-year-old girl who was raped by the defendant.
Okay, Mr. Lazarus, the red light indicates your time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice.
This is it. I think I'd rather be fishing. Go get him.
May it please the court, Mr. Chief Justice. Currently, there are 3,300 people on death row in this country. My client is one of only 2 who did not commit murder.
You here to give us a box score?
I'd like to provide a context, Your Honor. In Louisiana, 180 men have been prosecuted for child rape since this law went into effect in 1995. Leonard Serra is the only one facing death.
Look, counsel, Louisiana law permits death for child rape.
And I would respectfully submit that law is unconstitutional.
Based on what?
Based on this court's finding in Coker that the death penalty...
It spoke to the rape of an adult, not a child. Maybe you need to read it again. And even if I were to concede your point, which I don't, there's a national consensus now in favor of authorizing the death penalty for non-homicide rape.
Why? Because Louisiana passed a barbaric law joining the ranks of Saudi Arabia, Uganda, China...
And other states in this country...
5 states. That's hardly a consensus. And none of those other states authorize death for first-time offenders, as Louisiana does. And it should also be noted, in your reliance on a national consensus, you look to trends in legislation. Laws passed by politicians, mostly around election time, when they're desperate to appear tough on crime. The people who care the most about the welfare of children, doctors and social workers, the people who actually treat abused kids, have filed amicus briefs asking you to strike down this law because they know the death penalty, in fact, does not protect kids at all, but rather it makes it less likely that children, even if they've been abused, will report the crime, especially if a family member is involved. No kid wants to be responsible for a relative being executed. And children often get it wrong. They are uniquely prone to suggestibility and coercion. Not that the police would ever be guilty of that, of course, but we already have an epidemic of wrongful convictions in this country, as many as 15,000 a year, too many of them ending up on death row. And child rape prosecutions are especially unreliable. And now we want to add the death penalty to make these mistakes irrevocable? Whatever one's feelings are on capital punishment, and I realize with this court one seems to be for it, you simply cannot ignore the fact that we often screw it up. We convict the innocent, we botch executions, which is why many states have declared a moratorium on capital punishment. That's your true national consensus. And yet, here comes Louisiana seeking to expand the death penalty to non-homicide cases. And this is my favorite part, to kill the mentally disabled. Are we serious?
This defendant was never officially pronounced disabled.
But he is, just the same, Your Honor. He has an IQ of 70. They're going to kill him because there was no official pronouncement?
The way this goes, counsel, is we work off a record which you are not free to amend.
But by record, you simply mean the conviction. A reading of the entire record shows that he denies his guilt and always has. He has no prior arrest, that the victim never even made the accusation until a full 20 months after the alleged crime. There was no DNA.
Actual innocence is not something you get to argue.
Well, how silly is that? You're deciding whether or not to kill someone, and his possible innocence is irrelevant?
Mr. Shore, I don't like your demeanor, your tone, and I would remind you of where you are.